For me, it's time. So when I have the time throughout my day, I can then plan what type of life do I really want to live. And when I achieve that way of life, I don't know if it'll be the ultimate thing that I'll call success, but it is a success.
Nick Tsakiris, welcome. We're so happy to have you on board today.
Oh, thank you so much for the invite and pleasure to be here.
Well, Joe and I are looking forward to our conversation. Nick, tell us about a key challenge or even may have been an event that you faced that was significant and delve into telling us why it was significant.
Definitely the pandemic, but it was significant for obvious reasons, and those reasons affected everyone. But it also was particularly significant from what the hell am I going to do with my life point of view as well. I was personally at a crossroads anyway in hospitality because it was a great venue that I was managing, and it was a great opportunity. It was the height or the beginning of the height of my hospitality career, but it was late nights and it was really demanding from that perspective. And I think for a while there, I was trying to figure out whether I needed to find something a bit more forgiving, but didn't want to give up the great opportunity. My fiance, Kim, we would always meet up for coffee or a lunch before I started work. I remember we got a coffee in this little laneway coffee shop, and I walked in and picked up the newspaper, and it was all over the front page where there was an outbreak. Didn't really think anything of it. I remember Guy Grossi holding, because I used to work for Grossi, and Guy Grossi came in and held this massive meeting with everyone from all of the venues on the block. Basically said we've had our first cases in Australia, and it was the 0 day, if you will, the novel event where no one really knows what to do. And then from that meeting, fast forward to all of the lockdowns and just seeing the complete collapse of the hospitality industry. For those of us who was fortunate to kind of get the JobKeeper, hospitality professionals still are kind of wondering, what the hell are we going to do? How long is this going to go for? And then the longer these lockdowns went on for, the greater the weight of these existential career changing questions you have to ask yourself. When you're in your late 20s, approaching 30, and figuring out, well, I need to really start figuring out how I'm going to plan my future, that you start to feel the pressure. So that was the greatest challenge of my life. And the fear associated with that challenge was just the uncertainty, not just with where the virus was going, but the uncertainty of how I was going to set up my life. And, it was a proper crossroads moment, with the pandemic just adding its own flavor of total existential uncertainty.
And obviously, the COVID or the pandemic was the propeller. That was the thing that shifted you. But you mentioned you were at a crossroads anyway. What was going on for you to give you that sense, I don't know whether I'm in the right space right now?
Well, I think that the late nights were silently killing me. By late nights, I mean these are consistent 3, 4 a.m. finishes full time. And when you love the venue that you're managing so much and believe in the institution that you're working for, it's really hard to go, oh, I've worked so hard putting my own identity into this space and project, but it's ultimately just killing me on the inside. It was a complete loggerheads with Kim's schedule. Inside, I felt that the hours weren't right, and I needed to make a change in some capacity, but I wasn't sure whether that change was going to be somewhere else in hospitality. I remember actually wanting to figure out how to get out of hospitality and try something new. I really, up to that point, was never really working normal hours, 9 to 5, and having a proper one-to-one sync with Kim's schedule. So I remember craving that, but it was awfully difficult to have the capacity to properly find that 9 to 5 shift. I mean, it's a complete career change, and I didn't want to work cafes, which gives you those sorts of hours anyway. But I'd say that I had the feeling of needing to change, but not really knowing or putting myself in a position where making the changes seriously enough to actually get results in any foreseeable time frame.
So, Nick, was it an area or an industry you'd always wanted to work in? Was that part of it, that was what you wanted, alongside, I don't know how to get out of it, but was it also something behind the drive to stay there?
I fell into the hospitality industry. It was never a long-term intention of mine. I remember going to uni at 19 because I had to, but really I ultimately just wanted to travel. And so when I finally finished uni, I didn't feel the drive to do anything with my degrees because they were opening up career paths that weren't resonating with me at the time. And I remember going back to uni to study philosophy because it sounds smart and maybe I can be a scholar or something, and just being in my own fairy tale. And when I applied to study philosophy, it actually was just interesting. It piqued my interest. And regardless of what the career trajectory looked like, it was more just this is interesting to me. And I didn't really think too long and hard about what I was doing with my life. I just going with the flow. And my family comes from a pretty strong hospitality background. My dad was a chef of 50 years. My grandmother opened up her own tavern when she came to Australia. My grandfather opened up his own tavern, and my whole family, from cousins to aunties and uncles, they've all got taverns, coffee shops. I suppose it was a very natural industry to fall into, but I fell into it because I was studying, and it's easy to just work nights when I'm studying during the day. When I got my first job in hospitality, that was a type of hospitality that was sophisticated, I think that itself piqued a few interests of mine. It was the more high-end or sophisticated type of hospitality, and it's a very easy part of hospitality to fall into the let's take this seriously, because you're meeting people who really take it seriously, and so you start taking it seriously. That was in Canberra when I first got exposure to this type of hospitality. I then did my study in Melbourne, did the philosophy, worked in a restaurant, nothing too serious, just to pay bills while I was studying. But once I finally finished my study, I had built up a semi-respectable resume to then move into hospitality full-time. And then the opportunity to manage this award-winning venue came up, and that propelled a lot of excitement for me within hospitality. I was just content up to that point to focus on this venue and making it as best as I could. I started this latest role at Grossi at the beginning of 2019 in January. And there was so much excitement, and I felt this is like my first proper full-time job where I can actually start getting a bit more stability and have a basis to plan for my life. But it only took 6 months to reach that moment in life where I don't know if this is right. And 6 months does not sound like a long time, but it felt like I was there for a lot longer than 6 months. I'd say if it wasn't for the late nights, I may have stuck it out. I might not have reached that personal crossroads until later.
I'm hearing that there was a lot of fear around change that you mentioned earlier on. What was that fear? What was that sense of, I'm moving out of something, but where did the fear sit?
The fear sat in not having a clear idea of where I wanted to change to. And that, I think, was quite daunting, because you want to get out, but then when you get out, where is it that you want to go? So that's the lack of understanding what direction I wanted to take was where the fear sat.
So in those moments of going, I've got to get out, but I don't know where I'm going, I feel a bit at sea. What was going on inside of you? What were your messages that you were giving yourself, and how did you navigate that space?
I had a realization that the path to academia, and this was during my philosophy studies, was incredibly narrow and very competitive. The probability of going down that path very quickly became unrealistic for me. I've just spent 2 years studying all of this and studying pretty hard to get good results. But now going down the path that I thought was the path I wanted to go down is no longer an option or a realistic option. Where to now? Maybe I can try to change to industries where my skills that I had developed in philosophy could be put to good use. When I'm going through application after application, whether that be legal sector, or it's hard to describe what sectors are out there that where there's a clear connection. There was no clear trajectory of philosophy outside of academia. So my first goal was, all right, how do I get into the 9 to 5 so I can have my normal schedule? So then that kind of broadens your search. What are the types of 9 to 5 jobs where your philosophy graduate can transfer into. And there's a lot in the legal sector, but you're going to be hard pressed getting into the legal sector without a law background. There was a very small point in time where I thought maybe I could go back to uni and do law because I was so lost. Then when I applied to do law, I was knocked back because my grades weren't good enough. So I couldn't even do law. So I'm just going around in circles. In short, to answer your question, I was literally just stabbing in the dark.
Okay.
And I think that psychologically it was interesting in hindsight because the stabbing in the dark, there was hope. You kind of start ascribing a lot more hope to each application that you prepare for and all the cover letters and all of the selection criteria. And I remember there was one job as a research assistant at the Parliament of Victoria that I thought I could, transfer from philosophy into, and that didn't work. And so it was basically just stuck between working these late nights and not having any clear trajectory.
Was there any point, Nick, where you gave up hope?
I've never been one to think there's no hope. I think a part of me, if I say I need to get out of this, then there's a belief that I will get out of it. But it became daunting not having any direction. Once I get direction, I'm going for it and everything makes sense and I'm able to lay out all the steps. But when I have no direction, then that is where things become overwhelming.
Nick, you were being really logical and trying to identify career paths that you could marry your philosophy with your skill set that you had, and nothing was gelling. Did at any point you ask the question, what does my heart want to do?
And this is sort of fast forwarding to relatively recently because it points to what my heart wants to do. And it came with the realization that there's at least 2 existential questions that an individual can ask or can resonate with. So the first existential question is the popular one, and that's the one that I think I was getting caught up in. What do I want to be, or what do I want to do with my life? And I don't think I ever really had a clear understanding of how to answer that question. And I think that was the main cause for just having no real direction. I've come to realize now is that question, because I couldn't really answer it, it is not something that my heart can resonate with. My heart doesn't want to engage with that question.
Tell us why.
Well, the reason why, and this is what led to me to believe that there's another existential question that someone can ask, is how do I want to live? The how I want to live just automatically makes a lot more sense to me. I have a very clear understanding of exactly how I want to live. And so I've now organized my life in a way that is teleologically geared towards that goal, where that goal is in answer to the question, how do I want to live? And it's taken a lot of pressure off because it means that if I can create whatever paths I want, or that lay out the stepping stones for me to achieve that goal. And so therefore I understand why I'm taking that path, or why I've chosen that path, or why I've chosen to do this job, because it's geared towards getting me the way of living that resonates with me. And I think psychologically, in my reflections of how my brain operates, is that I'm a pretty simple creature. I just love being in a beautiful atmosphere and being surrounded by pleasant things and just having a great time, and comes with this how do I want to live type questions. And they're the types of questions that I feel like my heart makes the most sense out of. Whereas what do I want to do, or what do I want to be is a different category of question that I have not been able to make sense of. And I think it's because my heart's just not in connection with that type of question.
I think that's a really integral point to all of this conversation, and a great question to ask yourself, how do I want to live? Most of us look at what we want to do in the very action cycle, but living is more heart-based. What was it that you went, this is how I want to live? What were the other things that became really important to you?
Um, my time. I want to maximize the time that I have throughout the day. And this goes back to the philosophy. I became aware of some ancient Greek philosophers, because in ancient Greece there was a lot of emphasis on this question: how should one live? There's a philosopher by the name of Epicurean who had his own school of thought called Epicureanism. In a nutshell, he emphasizes on enjoyment as a central tenet to how one should live. One should live, in accordance to what they enjoy. Obviously, that can be taken out of context, or it can be taken to extremes where it's like, not tenable. But I think if you look at it from a common sense perspective, I just ask myself, how do I want to live? Well, I want to live in a way that maximizes my enjoyment, maximizes my happiness. So what are the things that I enjoy? Well, I enjoy being surrounded by lovely things. So Kim and I share that same sentiment. We've had a great time in fitting out our own place, and we've both reflected on it and gone, well, what difference does that make on our psychology? And it's made our general everyday happiness levels. And it's made a massive difference when you walk around your own home and you love everything that you see, and it creates this atmosphere that becomes your own haven. You reap the psychological rewards by making all of these little investments. I'm very atmosphere driven. When we go to Europe, I'm just in awe of all of the beautiful architecture and just the general outdoor atmosphere that beautiful architecture provides to a place, and what that does to a person's psychological happiness levels. They're the types of things that I gravitate towards. They're very simple and on paper materialistic, but when you delve into it, it's a very simplistic way of looking at things. I get a lot of value out of just being surrounded by lovely things, or putting myself in an atmosphere that I like, and that gives me happiness. And so this is all one part of this broader goal, into maximize my time, where on the daily basis, the more things that are occurring, or the more things that I'm surrounded by, are maximizing enjoyment levels. And so I go, well, what can I do where I'm just like, every day is a great day, and I'm having a great time. It might sound like I just want a holiday, but I want a situation where there's no stark delineation between being psychologically on a holiday and just living my life. And that's the goal. I don't want to live life where I need a holiday. I want my life to be a holiday. Yeah, that's what the broader outlook.
I love that, Nick. And I love the difference. For so many of us, we almost postpone our happiness. What do I want to achieve? When I've achieved that, I'll be happy sometime in the future. When I reach this goal, I'll be happy in the future. Whereas you're turning that around and saying, well, how can I be happy in this moment? And it's the moment to moment happiness that you're reaching for and you're achieving, that rather than postponing it. Is that what you're finding, that shifting the goal of happiness?
Absolutely, because if you want to go down the first route, which is, okay, I know that if I do X, Y, Z, I'll project a level of happiness once I reach it. But where every moment to moment added up, you're not that happy, or you're sacrificing quite a lot, or you're under a lot of stress. And then along the way, those stresses may have an impact on your health, and may have a greater impact on your psychology than you realize. Or you might get to your end goal and go, shit, was that even all worth it? I think I'm speaking in awfully general terms, but you hear the stories of people that sacrifice all of the great things that shouldn't be sacrificed in life for, say, their career or getting to the top of the corporate ladder. And by the time they reach it, they're now getting ready for retirement, and they look back, but what about all the things that I could have, that really mattered? More time with my family, or just not letting work stress me when it's not really worth it. I've basically sacrificed all of these things in my life for a company that may or may not ultimately care about me. Or you hear those types of stories. I think this is a higher, for lack of a better word, a higher order fear, or a long-term fear that I have, is getting to the end, getting to old age, and then looking back and going, I could have done X, or I really should have just prioritized Y. And when you're at that age and you get hit with that realization, I I don't want to find out what pain that might come with. I'm very reflective of how I live, and I'm very protective of that old age reflective Nick, where he looks back in life and goes, did I maximize my happiness, or did I give up things for what? And then have regrets or not doing things in life that, maybe I could have.
So that leads me to an interesting question, Nick. For many people, it's this strive for success. And for many people, success means is money. I want to get to this ripe old age and I want to have this much money so that then I can enjoy my life. What does success look like for you? And is it different?
Money's a very useful tool, but you're going to be clear about, well, what is it that you want money to provide for you? For me, it's time. When I have the time throughout my day, I've got a great job now, and I'm very grateful for that, and it gives me a lot of flexibility. But it gives me flexibility in a way where I can then plan what type of life do I really want to live. Now I'm thinking about building out those paths so I can get to that life. And I don't know if it'll be the ultimate thing that I'll call success, but it is a success, and it's a point in life where I have more time to myself, more time for Kim and I, where we're not necessarily bound to the parameters of a 9-to-5 job. We've got a bit more freedom, and we can have a bit more time to do things like travel or to spend more time with the kids. Time is one of those things that everyone has the same amount of time when they're here on Earth. Money can't buy you time. So how do you put yourself in a position that maximizes that? I think people get caught up in I need the money. I need the gigantic house with the giant car. But they only really get that by the time they've reached 60 or 70 years old. And up to that point, you've worked 90 hours a week. And if you want to enjoy a Sunday drive in your Ferrari, 65 years old, and have foregone, I can't even think of the amount of hours between now and 65, then, each to their own. But for me, the idea of success, at least short-term success, is getting to a position where I can say the delineation between work life and just life is a lot more blurred, where the delineation between holiday and non-holiday is a lot more blurred. That's the idea of success, where I can look around and go, great, I don't have a 9 a.m. meeting with someone who wants me to report on numbers. I report to myself, and that's what I'm wanting to get to.
Nick, it sounds like success to you is really living a life of joy.
Yes, that's right. And I know it sounds simple. You might have people out there that take great inspiration from your Steve Jobs or your Bill Gates, the CEO of Grand X company. I take great inspiration in the old timers that live in the Greek villages, that live to 100 and are the happiest people you'll meet. And they live a simple life, but every day is a joy. And they interact with three-dimensional reality as opposed to a computer screen and climbing a corporate ladder. And when you interact with these people, or even go to these villages and look around, they've got it right, in my opinion. I think people who get caught up in the rat race, we've got it, the joke's on us. So that's who I take inspiration from. I also take inspiration from our dogs when we take them for a walk in the morning. I'm in bed and Kim will be like, we've got to take them early to beat the rain or to beat the day. And I'm still sleepy and I can't be bothered. And then I'll watch one of our dogs just get totally and utterly excited because he wants to go for a walk and he's running around the house. And I'm thinking to myself, I've got a meeting at 9:30 to talk about God knows what. And this guy is running around because he's so excited that we're going outside. He's got it right. Us talking about God knows what, the 9:30 a.m. meeting on a Monday, we've got it wrong. And so that's who I take inspiration from. I wouldn't say that I'm not ambitious though, but my ambition is rooted in answering the question of how I want to live, not what I want to do or what do I want to be.
Go back to pre-COVID, Nick, who was caught in this existential question, what do I want to be, knowing that the hours that you're working, sure, you were making the money, but the hours you're working weren't right, but you weren't sure where to go. to now? What are you doing now that's different? Tell us about what you're doing for work and how's that different?
A lot of it is a combination between resilience and luck. I think silver lining in the pandemic. I've gone from pre-pandemic working in hospitality, post-pandemic working in cybersecurity. These are just totally different industries by a country mile. It was actually the stepping stones to getting to where I am now was a friend of mine said, why don't you try the tech industry, which I hadn't thought of at the time. Contactless ordering was a booming technology for obvious reasons. You've got to keep social distancing. So how do hospitality then keep running? And technology helped the ordering process in hospitality, but also kept things contactless and distant, really emerged. And I found a job opening that required people from hospitality backgrounds that also had a technical proclivity to work with hospitality venues in making sense of this technology and integrating it with their operation, which is better done when you actually know how hospitality venues operate. And so that was the foot in the tech door. And then from there, I found an opportunity to move into cybersecurity because my role, contactless ordering company, is a broader role that is designed to make sure that customers using the technology get the most value. And so it was a very clear step or bridge to move from hospitality into contactless ordering, where all of these experiences just aligned one to one, and then go from there into cybersecurity, which was very different, but became, ultimately a lot more flexible in terms of 9 to 5, partly remote, better pay. And then now in my latest job, which is still in cybersecurity, even better pay and fully remote. And so once a friend of mine said, why don't you try tech? I could do that. And then everything lined up very quickly after. Where I'm at now, I've got a lot more flexibility to think about how I'm going to plan the next phase of my life to reaching that state of success.
There was a lot of lostness for a period of time, going, what the heck am I going to do? But once you connected, how do you use the skills that you already have with a brand new industry? That was really the light bulb moment. And that, as you said, formulated a great bridge to shift across into a brand new industry, which still use some of these skills, because I imagine it still uses customer service and being able to work with people very effectively, but has catapulted you into something else that's actually starting to give you what you need to start to look at, how do I live the life that I want to live? How do I want to live every day?
Exactly. It's a very different place psychologically now to back in 2019, which I'm very grateful for. And I think definitely was so lost in the whole process that I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without my partner. The first piece of advice I'd give is find your soulmate, basically, and then your life will be sweet.
Do you think that's a bit easier said than done, though, Nick?
Yeah, no, of course, I'm very fortunate in that regard, to have found a life partner that is able to steer me in the right direction. We're able to support each other in so many different ways, and we have similarities. We're so similar in our outlook, where we're both not very career driven with what type of lifestyle that we want, like what type of lifestyle resonates with us, and we love spending time with each other so much that if we're able to have a point in life where most of our time is spent with ourselves and with our family and raising kids, and where we've got that state of living and the lifestyle that we want, we've reached our life's goal, our idea of success. Yeah. And we're very similar minded in the sense of lifestyle driven as well, and aesthetic driven, and just wanting to live a life of joy and not letting the rat race distract us from the things in life that are ultimately important. Tragically, for many people, the importance of which is only really properly acknowledged when they've reached the end of their days.
I love that, Nick, and the ability to have both of you on that journey. I can imagine you were both on that other existential question initially, and then for both of you to come together in this different goal, more momentary happiness, the goal when I reach this grand old age, I want to look back and say, wow, that was a life well lived. A lot of people may be listening and thinking, that's fantastic that you've both come to this same goal or direction together.
Exactly. Things that we remember and reflect on in life are the moments that we share with our family, or the moments that we experience when we travel. Or we don't look back in life and go, damn, I wish I closed that one extra deal, or I wish I had that one extra meeting, or I wish I wrote that one extra report. I'm grateful that we've both psychologically just happened to be the type of personalities and people that reflect, so that we're not losing sight of the important things now before it's too late.
Nick, can I ask, how old are you right now?
34.
34. So I'm just going to say, what an amazing offering you've just given a whole lot of people that are sitting in their 30s going, oh, I don't want to buy into this system anymore, in terms of showing that there is actually a way that you don't have to do that. And by seeking that clarity about how you want to live is a really wonderful question to ask yourself. So that's inspirational. You're right. Don't wait till 50, 60, 70 and then go, oh, how do I want to live now? It's a great question to ask at any age. Good on you.
I found it to be more organizing for me in my life than the question of what I want to do. So it has taken the pressure off. It's been giving me more clarity. Those two things, if you've got pressure taken off your shoulders and have more clarity, then you're on the right track. And that question alone has given those two things to me.
Wow. So Nick, wrapping up, we've had an amazing discussion. As Anne said, the 34-year-old, I'm listening as an older person going, wow, learning so much. Knowing what you know now, what message would you give your 10-year-old self?
The message that I would give my 10-year-old self is to have as much fun as possible. I think that the funness that we are able to recognize in life, or the funness that we're able to gravitate towards, is in large part due to the youth that we have inside of us. I think it's a great tragedy that as we get older, disconnect ourselves from our youth. The most crucial thing that comes with youth is this unaffected fun that we always want to have, right? A kid just wants to have fun and play and run around and explore and go on adventures. So we should keep that as much as we can. And I'm probably just preaching to the choir when I'm talking to my 10-year-old self, saying have as much fun as you possibly can, because I was blessed with, the best upbringing that I know of, and all I did was have fun. I think that's played a definite role in what I prioritize now as an older person. The advice would be just to do what you already did.
Keep on having fun.
Yeah, that's right. If you deprive a kid of fun, then you're taking away the thing that makes a kid, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. A lovely message. And so you've probably already alluded to this a little bit, Nick, but what's the greatest gift that this experience, the whole experience, but particularly the pandemic, all this knowledge has given you?
The greatest gift is the realization of how powerful not just change is, but the receptivity towards change. A lot of us are afraid of change, especially if you think you're in your comfort zone. But looking at how life has transpired over the last 5-7 years, the being ready and being receptive to change is what has gotten me closer to laying out the next steps towards my goal. And I think also, if you ask yourself, how do I want to live, rather than what I want to be, the paths that you set out for yourself are going to be naturally more dynamic. So you've got to be ready for change. You've got to be ready to make moves, and that might be uncomfortable for some, but in the actual experience of making changes, and it's almost always worse in the way that we imagine change or uncertainty than what actually transpires. And when you look back, most of the time you're going to say, I'm so glad I made that change. And if you make a change and that change doesn't work in that instance for whatever reason, the beauty is that you can just make another change. I'd say the greatest gift is not just developing this receptivity towards change, but valuing change as a tool for setting the path for one's life.
The final wrap-up question, what are your top 3 tips?
Top 3 tips: embrace change or use change as a tool. And it's always going to maximize your chances when you think of change as a really strong tool for your life. Second tip is never lose sight of the important things in life. And those important things are often easy to come by. They're the simple things. They're the things like, time with family, time for yourself, and also not letting the rat race just take you on a whirlwind to the point where you just look back and go, where the hell did my life go? So never lose sight of the important human things in your life. And the third one is to maximize your happiness, maximize joy.
Mm-hmm. Nick, I feel like I've been speaking to a wise sage who's lived their life and at the age of 90 or 100 has been sharing their top tips. Thank you so very much for your wisdom and your insight. It has been an absolute pleasure. And as Anne said, in someone in your 30s, what an inspiration to anyone, older and younger. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure's been mine. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, that's our episode for today of What's Fear Got to Do with It. Thanks so much for your company. We hope you found it insightful and it left you with some helpful tips from our guests and some great points for you to reflect on. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Substack or follow us on your favourite platform. Leave a review. We'd love to know your thoughts. Maybe you'd like to be a guest or you know someone who you would like to hear their story. Reach out to us on Insta at whatsfear_podcast or email us at info@whatsfear.com. All the guests' show notes are below to find their tips. And until next time, from Jo and I, take care, stay curious and keep the conversation going.